Hi, everybody.
Hello, I'm Ryan.
I'm Bethany.
And we are Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews.
And today we'll be talking about Mythic Mischief.
It's a tongue twister. Mythic Mischief?
Yeah.
Say that 10 times fast.
Yeah, I can't.
Mythic Mischief. Mythic.
Anyway, this game is designed by Max Anderson, Zach Dixon, and Austin Harrison. It is published by IV Studio. Thanks.
All right, so if you've watched Harry Potter, you know there's that scene where Harry Potter himself is in the restricted section of the library, right? He's got an invisibility cloak on, but he's still getting kind of hunted down and chased by Filch, the caretaker. That's kind of like the whole theme of this game. There is this library, and there's 3 of your characters, and there's 3 of your opponent's characters lurking around in this library, collecting all these different tomes, these books.
Yeah.
But there's one Tomekeeper who does not want you there, and he's chasing you all around this library, and you are not only trying to avoid getting caught, but you're trying to make sure your opponents do get caught. I'll give you a quick overview of how to play. Alright, here is an example of a setup for Mythic Mischief. There are 3 different setup options. Basically, you're going to place these walls, as well as all these different clutter tiles, in various places all over the board, based off whatever setup you've chosen. And then we have the Tomekeeper here in the middle of the board. That's going to be who's kind of chasing us around in this library. Furthermore, we also have this additional deck here, this before lunch deck. What we're going to do is we're going to shuffle that up, and we're going to choose one of these cards here. It's going to do a couple of things for us. It's going to tell us where some of our objectives are, and then also it's going to tell us the path that the Tomekeeper is going to take as he's walking around. It's going to start going to 1, then 2, and then 3. Let's put it over here, and then follow setup rules. Now we are fully set up and ready to go. We've got all the different tokens on the board, we have all the different objectives, and we have our own characters on the board that are going to be roaming around as well. So like I mentioned, the Tomekeeper is going to be roaming around the board. He's going to be traveling from the starting spot to 1, in this case over to here to 2, and then 3. Once that's completed, then we're going to go to an after lunch setup. It's going to be the same kind of a thing. More of those objectives are going to be put out there, as well as different locations where the Tomekeeper is going to be traveling around to. The Tomekeeper is kind of really the focal point of this entire game. That's how you're going to get all your victory points. It's how you're also going to avoid getting points taken away from you. What you're trying to do is you're trying to avoid getting caught in this library by the Tomekeeper. If at the end of one of your turns, the Tomekeeper ever catches you on his path, you're going to lose a point. Conversely, if you're able to have the Tomekeeper catch one of your opponent's characters after your turn, you're going to gain victory points. Every player is going to have your own faction board, and it's basically going to give you some options as far as what you can do on your turn. The first one's obvious, it's just moving around. Moving from place to place is only one move. However, if you were to climb on top of this clutter here, it would take you 2 moves to move on top of that. Every time you move, you're going to roll your dice, or rotate them anyways, so that it shows how much you've used. Every faction also has a way of moving the bookshelves around. In this case, the vampires are able to kind of rotate the bookshelves around themselves. So let's do this. Rotating that wall there. Again, we're going to move our dice here to show that. We've spent that action. Each faction generally has a way of moving other players around. In this case, we have a lure action. We can spend that in order to lure one of the players closer to us. So let's have this particular character lure this yellow character one spot closer to us. We still have an additional move, so we might try to move this guy over here in order to get one of those books on a future turn. The final main action you can take over here is Distract. That basically says you can move the Tomekeeper towards you, which sounds dangerous, but can be really helpful in order to kind of puzzle things out and make them turn out the way you want them to. So let's go ahead and spin that action, and we will have the Tomekeeper be distracted by this character over here, moving him 1 space closer. Alright, we've spent all of our regular actions, so now what we're going to do at the end of our turn, the Tomekeeper is going to move 4 spots, going from the middle spot, or where the current location is, to the 1. Once the 1, then the 2, then the 3, like we talked about earlier. So, the Tomekeeper is going to move 1, 2, this player is knocked out, 3, 4. The Tomekeeper is always going to choose the shortest route between where he is and where he's trying to get to. If there's ever a tie between those different things, the current player gets to choose which route he will take. Alright, because our opponent's character was caught during our turn, we are going to gain a victory point. The game is going to end once either one player has 10 points, or once the entire before lunch scenario has happened, then we're going to flip over that after lunch scenario. We're going to flip that card over, do another setup phase, and then the Tomekeeper is going to continue around, going to 1, 2, and 3 locations. At the end of that third and final location on the after lunch card, the game is going to end, and whoever has the most victory points wins the game. Every faction board works more or less the same way. They all have a basic move and distract. They all have some way of moving walls, and they all have some way of moving other characters. How they move walls, how they move other characters is going to change a little bit, but they all have similar abilities. However, at the bottom of each board, there's going to be some very specific abilities. At the bottom left of the board, we have our advanced action. This is a very strong ability, so strong that you actually have to spend one of your tomes in order to enact it. If you gain more tomes, you can add it to that spot on the board in order to do that again. This particular one says you can move neighboring enemies 2 spaces in any one direction. You can put them right in the path of the Tomekeeper, which is fantastic. On the bottom right of our board, every faction has an after-lunch special. It's a special action that can only be taken after the first half of the game has been completed. In this case, this one it says, of course with the vampires, whenever you walk through a character, you can walk through characters on the board, but you cannot land on the same spot as them. Whenever you do that, whenever you walk through them, this particular character gets to gain one of these little heart tokens. At the end of your turn, we're going to do kind of a reset phase, which I haven't shown you yet, but basically you're going to be able to use these in order to temporarily boost up some of your stats. Alright, really quick, let's talk about boosting up those stats. Alright, so right now what we're going to do is we're going to move everything over to the far, far left. Now, any of these tokens or these tomes that we've gained throughout the course of the round, we're going to be able to add them on the board on the far left side and kind of push things over. So let's go ahead and do that now. If this were after lunch, we'd also be able to use our blood token as well. So let's put that in there. And now also, you get to boost 2 stats. This is a temporary bonus that you can kind of change from round to round. Basically, you either move 1 stat twice up, or you can move 2 different stats up once. In this case, let's move our lure up. It's an important one. And maybe let's get some more movement as well. Now that we've got all the dice where we want them, what we're going to do is we're going to rotate them so that the strength of the action is based off of the number that's underneath them. In this case, we chose not to boost up or add any additional tokens to distract, so that's an action that we're going to be able to take on our next turn. However, we're going to have lots of movement, the ability to lure some stuff around, and of course move some doors as well. Every faction is very different, and there are 4 different ones that come in the box. There are 3 expansions as well that give you 3 additional different factions that you can use. Each one has cool different abilities, so be sure to explore them all.
The components on this game are amazing. They are so good. The individual people for all the different factions for the monsters and the vampires and the witches, they're all thematic and they look really cool. The Tomekeeper is huge on the board. The little bookshelves, it's all really chunky and tactile. I mean, even the rule book, it's really cute and it says rules of misconduct. They just really it's just great. I love the components of this game. I liked the layout of everything. It looks amazing.
I like the variability in this game. There's a whole bunch of different factions. There's 4 that come in the base game, plus there's a bunch of expansions as well. They all have different things. They all have a way to move. They all have a way that they can distract the Tomekeeper. But they all have some kind of way that they can move walls around, but they're different. They also have some kind of way of moving their opponents around, but those are different as well. So each faction is different in that way. And then on top of that, you have the advanced actions. Those are all very different. Those expensive actions. And then you have the after-lunch specials. They're all different. Factor on top of that, there's 4 different cards for the after-lunch, 4 different cards for before lunch, or maybe between 5. A whole bunch of different card setups for the before and after lunch. Yeah. Then you have 3 different setups for all the different walls and all the different clutter. Oh my gosh. Every time you play this game, it's a completely different setup, a completely different situation. You have to react accordingly, and it makes it very, very, between game to game, just so much variety.
It's kind of like a real-life living puzzle that when you're playing this game, because you're trying to puzzle out how you can get the tombs that you need.
Tomes?
Tomes. Oh my gosh. You guys would not believe how many times I say that. All the time. Ryan's very gracious.
The Tomekeeper. It sounds like it's coming from Crypt Keeper. This is a bookkeeper, the librarian.
Oh gosh, it's okay. The
tome.
Tomes. You need the tomes because you need to be able to do your abilities more. One of the abilities, your best ability, even if you move it up, you still don't get to do anything. You really have to try. So you need that, but you don't win the game unless your opponents get caught. So you really need to mess around with this to collect all of the books and also push your people around. So you're rearranging this puzzle to make it work for you, but then your opponent takes a turn and they rearrange this puzzle to mess with you. It's like you're doing 2 different puzzles at the same time, but you keep throwing pieces into each other's puzzle and you keep taking pieces from each other's puzzle and you're just trying to work it out so you can win and they can lose, and it's great.
I will say that because you have all these different fantastic actions that you can take in your turn, but it doesn't go back and forth. It's not like I take an action, then Bethany takes an action, then I take an action, then Bethany takes an action. No, I trigger all of my abilities in whatever order I want, and then there's an end of round. The Tomekeeper moves around, do a cleanup phase, and then it's Bethany's turn. She does all of her actions. Now, because of that, there can be situations where you have a turn that lasts kind of a long time, especially later on in the game once you've kind of built up all your stats.
Yeah.
You have a whole lot of movement. You have a whole lot of doors, bookshelves that you're going to be moving around, a whole lot of people you're going to be moving moving around, and it can take a really long time, especially as it's unfolding. You can't really strategize ahead of time. You can try to, but the state of the game is going to change on your opponent's turn, so you can't really look at what you want to do until you've seen the new state of the board.
Yeah.
And then now I can start planning. And it's going to take kind of a long time. So sometimes those turns are a little bit lengthy, so keep an eye out for that.
However,
I think they thought of that, and they knew that. So they made a mode of the game called the Blitz mode. And oh my gosh, this is insane. So what it is, now you're under the gun with a timer. You have 2 minutes to do all of your actions, and you are just like making all the, you're just going as fast as possible, knowing the timer is running out on you, and chances are you're going to make some mistakes, which is actually kind of fun, because then you have a situation where you made a suboptimal move, but then your opponent's going to do the same thing. They're going to be going as fast as possible, then they're going to make a suboptimal move. So I really enjoy that Blitz mode option that's available to you. And also, on top of that, it adds a secondary win condition. So normally, once you get to 10 points, or once the Tomekeeper has gone all of his before lunch moves and all of his after lunch moves, now you have a third way the game can end, which is if all 3 of your players have been caught, game over. And every time they get caught, they stay off the board. They don't come back on like they do in the regular game. So I think that's really fantastic. Also, there's a teams version that you can play with the Blitz mode as well. So we have 2 separate boards, but they're connected together. So basically, you have a doubly large library, and one person's playing off of one board, one teammate is playing on one board, one teammate's playing on the other board. But you can even kind of move around them between each other's boards. It's wild, it's crazy, it's chaotic in all the best ways.
this game was delightful. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was darkly whimsical because it's like the school, but it has all these mystics in it, and you have like the normal things. You have like the preppy kids, you have the gothic kids, you have the drama kids, you have the skater kids, you have the sports, the jock kids. Those are all represented in these different, and the witches and the monsters and the vampires, and it's so cool to see that implementation in that. Like, it really made it come alive in this game, and I thought it was a great thematic choice to bring this game alive. I had so much fun playing this, so much fun, in fact, that I have decided that we will be keeping this, and we're going to be moving something else off of our shelf.
Do I get to have any decision making, is what that is? You want one of the small games? Substitute this big game for a small game?
Yeah, sure. That will alleviate the space on our shelf.
No, I agree. This is such a cool, puzzly game. It's an interactive puzzle like Bethany was talking about. The table presence, phenomenal. Everything looks great. It feels great. This is such a cool, evocative theme, right? This is such a unique, cool theme. And this is a game that I know Bethany is going to be asking for over and over and over again. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Obviously, she liked it a little bit more than I did, but that doesn't mean I didn't like it. I just liked it a whole lot. What a great game. So every time she asks for it, I'll be happily able to say yes.
Yeah, because we'll still have it. Everybody.
I have to get rid of like 10 small games.
10 small games.
To make room for this one.
Everybody, thank you so much for watching it. Don't forget to subscribe so you can see your videos as they come out. Until then, you can find us in all of these places.
You guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye everybody.